That went a lot
That are-
longer than I thought it would.
Yeah, those are words that I don't hear that often.
TacoCorp episode 93, actual 93. I'm Nate. That's Tony over there. We're going to cover top of mind. We're going to hit some sports topics. We're talking all quarterbacks today. We're going to go over and do a draft because we like to draft. We'll leave you with a rant and rave and a banger for the week. Tony, how's it going? You got anything top of mind for you?
Doing well. Good to be back after my vacation, which immediately followed my promotion to co-host. Speaking of which, is it cool if I take the next 2 weeks and 2 episodes off?
Jesus Christ.
Just kidding. I'm ready to talk some football, though. Ready to get into some quarterbacks. For top of mind, I did miss the last one, which means I did miss an opportunity to bitch about stuff. So are you ready?
Sure.
I'm so angry after I wasted a meal, calories, and money. But this fast food chain is terrible. It's the worst. It's also from Texas, which doesn't help. It's Whataburger. Burger to burger, I think I would put it below Carl's Jr., maybe even A&W. And I'm not even joking about that. Like, it was legit bad. The fries, they weren't that great. You always hear people talking crap about In-N-Out for their fries. Whataburger's fries are mid.
Terrible.
And I don't use that word lightly. I don't even know what that word means, to be honest. But they're mid. The burgers are mid. The shake I got was mid. The entire operation is mid. The last thing I'll say is this, and I did some research. Would you agree that Colorado Springs is a pretty good mix of folks from Texas, California, really all over, just because we have 4 military bases?
Yep. Everywhere.
Fair statement, right?
Everywhere.
Yeah, we're pulling in folks from across the country. So there is not a single Whataburger within 50 miles of us that's rated above 4 stars on Google reviews in the Springs. In-N-Out, not a single restaurant rated below 4 stars. Yeah, exactly. And last thing, the meal I got was $13. How the hell are we supposed to feed, a family of 3 or 4 on a budget? It's outrageous. It's mid. I'm done.
You got to eat spaghetti at home, and it's like $1.99 for 2 full meals or whatever like that, because you can't do Whataburger for that type of price. And the spaghetti, even if you just get the regular Hunt's can, 99 cents. I think with the economy the way it is, it's like $1.19 or something like that. Some noodles or whatever. Which, shout out to Walmart. Because if you go to Walmart and you buy great value brands, right, which I buy the store brands a lot or whatever like that, Walmart spaghetti. So how you have the regular spaghetti size, and I'm over here showing my length, right? But normal spaghetti size, they actually sell a box where it's half cut spaghetti. So it's the same amount. You'll still get a pound of spaghetti, but it's cut in half. So you don't have to I got kids, right? They're not slurping on foot long of spaghetti noodle. I got to cut that or whatever, but I don't have to do that with that. And it's amazing because you don't have to wait for the top to get into the water or anything like that. So it's super awesome. Shout out to Walmart. And it's 68 cents for a box or whatever like that. So you can make some spaghetti for pretty cheap there. But
yeah, the shells are where it's at. If you're worried about the kids having to chop up their noodles and stuff, just get some shells, some elbow noodles, some bow ties. Kids love that stuff too. We mix it up.
If I go to those, how do you call them? The big box stores, Costco, Sam's Club or something like that. I usually just get that big variety pack, and it has all kinds of the rigatoni, the elbow, the spaghetti or whatever in it. So you get 8 things or whatever for $6. So I usually go through those quite a bit. But back on the Whataburger thing too, everybody talks about how good Whataburger is, or people who just want to, they're the target people who won't go to Walmart type because they're too good. And they think they're better than everybody. Hipsters who wear Crocs with, gemstones in them or whatever they call it. Gibbets. Is that what they're called?
Yep. Charms. They're charms.
Charms. I've never seen more than 2 cars in a Whataburger drive-through. You go to In-N-Out, it's a 30-minute wait, right?
It's backed up.
And everybody's willing to do it, which means that it's valuable to them. It's a good product that they're putting out. Whataburger is hey, you guys like mustard? Yup. The only good thing I think that Whataburger has that I kind of like is the spicy ketchup. But I'll just order I went with my brother and them when they were here because they'd never had Whataburger because they'd never been past Las Vegas. We were out by Garden of the Gods, and they're like, hey, let's go get this Whataburger. I haven't tried it yet. I'm like, fuck, why do we got to do this? And all I did was I got a banana cream shake or something like that and some onion rings with spicy ketchup. And that was it. I couldn't do a meal or nothing like that. It was, I can't stand that
calories.
Place. And we got to put some respect on Carl's Jr. and A&W. Those are actually pretty damn good burgers for what they are.
I didn't mean to offend Carl's Jr., Hardee's, or A&W.
And Carl's Jr. has like the zucchini and stuff like that. So it's pretty
dude,
good.
I used to get down on the was it the bacon Western cheeseburger with the onion rings?
Yeah.
So good.
My
That
dad
was like a high school staple.
My dad still gets on me like to this day, and I was like in elementary school. We'd go to Carl's Jr. like I don't know every couple weeks or something like that after work. It was like 9, 10 o'clock. We'd just go grab a burger, and I always liked to get the Western bacon cheeseburger or whatever. But I only wanted it because it had an onion ring on it, so I would order it without barbecue sauce and no bacon. Because my dad would get pissed because he's paying like $10 for a combo or whatever.
It was a good onion ring.
Yeah,
I'll give him that.
Yeah. Anything else top of mind for you, Tony?
That's all I got. What you got?
For me, I'm concerned because it is fantasy football season. I moved myself off of Facebook, right? So I don't have like a personal account or whatever. So that got rid of the group that we had that we used to coordinate through. Sent a thing, said, hey, started a Discord channel or server, whatever like that. Hop in it. Everybody hopped in it pretty quickly or whatever like that.
Yeah.
So everything was good, right? But I've been posting things and updates about our league of like, yo, here, when's the draft? Let's coordinate a draft time. 2 or 3 people comment back in it, right? So I don't know if everybody's tracking the draft date. So I went into ESPN and I'm like, okay, I got to make a league note. And then I got to email the league through ESPN. So I hope that everybody saw that at least or whatever. Hey, this is what it is. And you need to be live and active because we're not doing it online. And so get in whatever this is. No one said anything about it. Then I posted a thing about the fees. Terrence paid right away, and that was it, right? And I know there's like 4 or 5 people who probably saw it, but I don't know if everybody saw it. So I don't know. I'm like really concerned that we're not going to have enough people to draft, and it's getting to me. And I'm missing like 2 people's phone numbers out of the league too.
That's what I was going to say. Send a group text. It's probably going to be some green in there. Send out a mailer for the Wayne Henrys of the world. Still check mail and stuff like that. Maybe send out some fucking carrier pigeons.
Yeah,
because I don't know what's gonna work. I have a Facebook group for our league, Matt and I's league, 58 West King, and the stuff we post in the group, nobody seems to interact with. So I don't really know what the answer is.
At least
I think people are still hibernating.
The only thing that I liked about Facebook about it was that at least I could see who saw the post. Because it'll tell you like viewed by or whatever, right? I can't tell that in Discord. And it's really getting to me, and I'm getting really anxious. And we're like 3 weeks out from a draft, and I'm trying to put a lot of effort into it to make it fun and stuff like that, and kind of just elevate what we do for draft season and stuff like that to make it more fun. And there's a lot of like tech I got to get involved and all this kind of stuff, right? I got another TV that I got to set up and computer monitor and a board
money
and then,
on a draft board.
Yeah. And then, I'm obviously going to cook and get down on the grill or whatever like that too. So it's like that morning is going to be hectic as well. I just need to know that everybody's going to be there. So, and we know for damn sure, based off the numbers in Colorado, that not everybody listens to the podcast because there's not enough numbers for what we have in the league that live in Colorado. And the majority of the listeners are outside of the league. So I'm really concerned, and I got to like write people to be like, hey, I need this person's phone number or something like that because I don't know.
Kind of sounds like you need a co-commissioner to handle some of this communication, some of the correspondence.
Yeah, the only thing is I'd be afraid that the co-commissioner would like mess up the draft time thing or something like that, and then everything would get fucked up with how the draft order went and all this kind of stuff. So I'm really concerned about that kind of stuff. But
that's a throwback to, I don't know, 2021 when I fucked up our draft order.
Yep.
This damn kid's birthday party. You shouldn't be concerned about that because I learned my lesson, but you should be concerned about me changing the SACO rules if you do make me co-commissioner. So don't do it. It's a bad idea for you.
Yeah, I would never make you co-commissioner. You're lucky enough to be the asterisk co-host of the podcast. So
assistant to the regional manager.
Yeah, assistant to the assistant co-host.
There you go.
So that's what it is. So I don't know if you've watched this yet. I'm a couple episodes in, but the first season of Netflix's Quarterback gave us a good look inside the lives of Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and Marcus Mariota on and off the field. Since its release, we've had a bunch of players come out and say that they're not going to be on season 2. And that they've turned down the ask, apparently, that they're not going to do it. Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, Geno Smith, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, Tua Tagovailoa, Matt Stafford, Sam Howell, and Jalen Hurts got breaking news during the Pat McAfee show today. We are recording on Thursday, August the 3rd. So this will probably come out next week or something like that, I believe. He had stated that they haven't requested other people. Like those people didn't, like the people can't sit there and say that they turned it down because I guess they have NDAs or something in place to be like, hey, we wanted you to have this on it because it's supposed to be like you don't know who's going to be on the show. They won't release who's on the show, therefore they're not going to release who isn't on the show. So they said it's all capped, that all these players are saying they're not going to be on it, but they actually haven't been asked yet, and they have no concerns about what's going to go forward with the show because season 2 is already approved and in the works or whatever like that to be filmed. So interesting thing there. But what I want to ask you is, which 3 quarterbacks would you like to see go through the 2023 season and season 2 in the show Quarterback on Netflix?
I mean, when you told me all of those quarterbacks who said no to the show, kind of piqued my interest. Honestly, I've only seen a little bit of the first season, so maybe it's one of those things, right? There's no such thing as bad press.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I only saw a little bit of the first season. I haven't gotten through the whole thing, but it was all veteran quarterbacks. I'd call all those guys veterans. Going forward for like a season 2, if I was invested in the show, I think I'd like to see a mix, maybe a veteran, maybe a rookie, and then a guy I think you'll approve of, and that's Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy.
Mm-hmm.
So this dude was like the last pick in the draft to just dominating last year before he got injured. I think San Fran probably punches through to the Super Bowl if he stays healthy, and then who knows what happens there. Second one, CJ Stroud. So this would be the rookie pick. Different game moving from college to the NFL, and he's going to a team that's been a basement dweller, and they're probably going to be a basement dweller this season. But I think it'd be cool to just like follow him and get some insight there. And in year 1, it's always interesting to me, like these elite talents at, in any sport, but these dudes who never lost a game leading into whatever professional sport they're going to, they're getting drafted to like these terrible teams. It's just how sports work, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just how do they deal with that adversity? And then the last one I have is Josh Allen. He's my vet. He's got astronomical expectations. It's pretty much Super Bowl at bust, I think, for the next year or 2 for Buffalo. And like Brock, he kind of has like a cool story. I think you've talked about it before. Wyoming was like the only school that took him, though he applied all over the place. But I'm always rooting for him. He seems like a cool dude. And I'd love to see like a behind the scenes thing, just see what motivates him. I think he'd be cool. But yeah, Brock Purdy, CJ Stroud, Josh Allen, season 2.
The Josh Allen one's interesting because he doesn't put out his like family life or his relationships and stuff, right? I think it was
mystery.
Kay Adams was interviewing or something like that. I guess Josh Allen he's dating or he's married. I think he's dating like a singer or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. Someone in the entertainment business. Yeah. And Travis Kelce just got shut down by Taylor Swift. Basically, he couldn't talk to her to get his friendship bracelet of his phone number or something like that. So
I saw that.
She asked, was going to ask like dating advice for Travis Kelce or whatever. So it kind of blew up or whatever. But that would be interesting to see. I kind of went with it as I get Mahomes as a veteran. He's been in the league for a while, 2 Super Bowls, MVPs and all that kind of stuff. But I still see him as like up and coming type of face of the league type of quarterback, right? And then I saw the Kirk Cousins as the guy who's been like an all-time veteran type of guy or whatever like that, been around, but he's chasing, a ring or staying relevant and stuff like that. And then Marcus Mariota, a guy he had some success, but struggled and then went somewhere, sat behind other people, and then got a shot to be the starter or whatever. So I kind of went the same route. And I did mine as Justin Herbert. He's the only top 3 quarterbacks statistically in the last 3 years, all basically for all time statistics, right? As far as like yards and touchdowns and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's good because he's kind of been forgotten a little bit amongst the names of like Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, even Trevor Lawrence, right? And a lot of guys he came up into the league with. And it's the first year him getting like an actually really good offensive coordinator who we think is going to elevate their game. So I think that would be pretty cool to see that, go through the season or whatever like that and his progression growth. My veteran one, like my Kirk Cousins type, I went with Derek Carr. So seeing him get ran out of Las Vegas, he's loved by the city and the town and stuff like that. Has done nothing but win there as far as like his production really and stuff like that. But then go into a city who is like one with their football team in New Orleans, right? And I think that really happened after Katrina with Drew Brees and how much the team put into the city. Yeah. They opened up the Superdome so that they have a lot of like community love within there. He's got solid weapons all around and a strong chance to win the division this year and be in the playoffs while his former team is competing for the number 1 pick. So I think that'd be interesting to see, right? And then my Marcus Mariota type, I put Baker Mayfield, looking to get his career back on track after a tough couple years, moving through the Browns and Carolina. Then he goes to the Rams and they're in shambles. Everybody's hurt. And he goes over there and wins a ball game, with a late touchdown pass to Van Jefferson and stuff like that. No offensive line, knows the plays for like 3 days type of thing or whatever like that. And then he gets a chance in Tampa Bay. And he's got good receivers in Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, right? I like Baker Mayfield. He's a dude who's like a football guy, right? Just a straight up football player. Like if you had to describe him, what is he? He's a football player. And if they can somehow block there a little bit in Tampa Bay and figure that out, then I think they got a chance to compete with New Orleans for the division. So I think that makes some interesting stuff for the show too. Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield, they're on the field at the same time. It kind of gives that same arc that you had in the last season. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, and with Baker, we saw him on was it Hard Knocks, right? In his rookie year with those guys.
Yep.
So it'd be kind of cool to see like where he's at now, mentally and just as a professional.
Yep. Moving on to a couple other topics on the quarterback position. So everybody in the fantasy realm trying to find out who all these breakout players are and stuff like that, right? And it seems like the fantasy community, whether that is content folks or just people believing in what they're seeing and stuff like that, are realizing that we talked about it a little last year, right? In the middle of the season, like, yay, the way to go is these top quarterbacks, right? They provide such a big value every single week. When you look at Mahomes, just over 400 fantasy points last year. Jalen Hurts, points per game better than Patrick Mahomes last year. He was out the last 3 weeks of the season, last 2 weeks of the fantasy season. He probably finishes as fantasy quarterback number 1 if he plays both of those weeks. Then you got a guy like Josh Allen last year too, right? Those guys are like 40, like Patrick Mahomes was 35 points above all those guys, right? So if you're looking every single week, that's a few points. But then the drop off from like 4, 5, 6, 7, even these guys are quarterback 1, it's 50, 60, 70 points on the season. You're looking at 5, 6 points out of the position. Like when we talk about Travis Kelce and his positional advantage, it's so much greater than that, but you're getting such a big one at quarterback, and you're not getting these dud weeks of like 8, 9, 12. Like you're getting 20 points a week or whatever like that. So we're all looking for a breakout guy, whether that's in the running back, the wide receiver. Some people are looking at tight ends. If you're playing in one of those cheap leagues that uses defenses, right, you're looking at the Miami Dolphins and what they're doing, and Vic Fangio. Even though they don't have Jalen Ramsey, I think they'll still be okay, but they're going to have to cover up a little bit on that Eli Apple side. So, but we're talking quarterbacks. So let's talk 2023 breakout quarterbacks. Tony, 3 breakout quarterbacks for 2023. Go.
Yeah, we're always looking for an edge. I think the game with quarterbacks has kind of shifted the last couple of years. If anybody follows JJ Zacharyson, he wrote a book. He is dubbed as the late round quarterback analyst. I think that's completely gone. I don't think you can play by those rules anymore. You mentioned Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. I would put Jalen Hurts. You talked about Justin Herbert. All those guys are going in the first 4 rounds. So I try to pick guys outside of the first 4 rounds that you could get a little bit later, so you can still address your wide receiver, your running back, and if you want, a Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews. So the first one, he's kind of flirting with the 4th round. He's in and out of it right now. He's like 47. He was 49 when I got this list together. But it's Justin Fields. The dude's electric on the ground, and Chicago added DJ Moore this offseason. And for this list for breakout quarterbacks, I feel like that rushing upside is important to have, and he absolutely has it. He averaged 10 carries a game last year once he took over as a starter. I think that was in week 7. It may not mean wins for Chicago or for whatever team this rushing quarterback happens to be on, right? But it does mean a lot of fantasy points. I think Justin Fields was like top 3 from week 7 on last season. So he's money.
He still finished in like the top 5 or 6 or something like that overall, just based off of
I think it was QB6. Yeah. Yep. Do you want me to keep going, or are we doing one by one?
Yeah, I'll do one. Okay. So my number 1 here is Tua Tagovailoa. So Tua is current. He's probably somewhere around like the 8th to 15th quarterback, depending on how people feel about the injuries and stuff like that. He obviously has all the weapons in the world. 2 top 15 wide receivers. They bring in A-Chain, who's got speed out of the backfield. Granted, he's small, but all those other guys are going to be stretching the field. They have, just ballers everywhere. They're going to be so fast, and being able to stretch everybody north, south, east, and west. I think A-Chain provides some value there too. And all he really needs to do is get the ball into people's hands and let them work. It looks like his accuracy is a little bit better from training camp videos and stuff like that. Granted, it's a lot of one-on-one drills and stuff like that, which you can't really take too much into because there's no safety help. There's no linebackers in the way. There's no pass rush or anything like that. But as far as just ball throwing, it looks like, he's another year under that Mike McDaniel's offense, just learning, being able to do all that kind of stuff. Does he have the confidence and all that kind of stuff? But if you do play in one of those, like we do in our league, in TacoCorp Fantasy Football League, we play team quarterback, and that started in COVID. And I still think it's the best way to do it, just based off of the way the injuries are and stuff like that. You don't lose. It's the most important position on the field. You probably want the guy on the team, but they got the best backup quarterback. So if you play in a league like that, it's definitely worth it to go have a shot at that, because Mike White's going to sling it. And I don't think they're going to miss a beat like they did with Skylar Thompson or Teddy Bridgewater or anything like that last year. So Tua is one of my breakout guys that I can see hopping into that top 4 or 5, where people are projecting him to, score 270 points on the season or something like that, or maybe 300 points, and then be able to push that 380 mark.
Yeah, Tua's going as the 11th quarterback off the board, and that is at pick 91.
Yeah.
So if you can get him late, you can have your whole damn team built at that point.
You're going to draft his 2 wide receivers in the first
easily,
2.5, 3 rounds or something like that. Why would you not take the quarterback? It makes no sense.
Yeah. It's pull the trigger around early. Yeah, for sure.
And no one's going to draft Mike White, right? So it's an easy handcuff if you play by the quarterback naming rules, right? Your last pick of the draft, round 16, 17, 18, 20, or whatever, however many rounds you do, just pick up Mike White and stash him on your bench, because you got the guy, and he's an immediate fill-in who's going to produce. This dude passed for 400 yards with the Jets last year, and they had absolutely nobody, and their best wide receiver at the time was a rookie. So put him with speed everywhere. Jesus.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. My next one here, a guy going in the 5th round. So again, you can address some of the other positions before you get to this point, but it's Trevor Lawrence. Every year we get a young quarterback who inherits an elite weapon, either at receiver or tight end. Mentioned Justin Fields getting DJ Moore. We saw it with Jalen Hurts getting AJ Brown. Josh Allen got Stephon Diggs. Well, Trevor Lawrence last season inherited Calvin Ridley, had to finish his suspension, but he gets to play this year alongside Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, and Nate's favorite, Zay Jones.
Yep.
He's also got a decent rushing upside. He ran for 300 yards and 5 touchdowns in 2022. So that's going to add on, that's going to tack on to what he throws for week in and week out.
Yep. And you don't even have to worry if he's down 31-0 at the half or anything like that, right? Or a minute into the half. He's probably going to come back and win that ball game. So
that's right.
And it's not going to be against the Colts. So it's actually going to be against my number 2 guy, and that's Justin Herbert. So Justin Herbert finally in an offense that doesn't throw to one running back for 18% of the targets and 28% of his completions. Kellen Moore steps in as the offensive coordinator, and he's putting in that Air Coryell offense, who shout out to Coryell. He just got inducted into the Hall of Fame. I believe it was his daughter just, accepted the award or whatever like that. But he is the guy who created this offense with the San Diego Chargers back in the day. They're going to bomb it deep. They showed what they want to do by how they drafted too, right? They go out and get Quentin Johnston. They got Mike Williams on one side, Keenan Allen. The only thing you got to worry about is really health of the wide receivers. And Herbert did play completely hurt last year too, as well. And he still passed for 4,700 yards, 300 yards lower than the season before when he threw for 5,000. He's the only quarterback I got over 5,000 yards this season, projected wise. He scored 25 passing touchdowns last year. I believe he's going to hit that 35 and tickle the 40 mark with the weapons that he has. I think people are way too high on the Austin Eckler piece, but you only get so many yards passing it to a guy behind the line of scrimmage or just at the line of scrimmage, right? They're going to attack the field down the field, down the field, down the field. And they still got Palmer out there and everything like that too. So maybe he doesn't touch that Mahomes piece, but he has all the weapons to do it as well too. And when they get down to the goal line, I don't see a lot of stuff to Austin Eckler or anything like that. I think you got jump balls everywhere, and it's going to stress out the defense like crazy because you can't double team 3 massive dudes and Keenan Allen coming underneath it. So Justin Herbert is my breakout guy. I think he finished like 6th, 7th or something like that, 8th last year, but touchdowns down a lot. He did have rushing touchdowns last year, I don't believe, as well too. So does he get a couple of those, sneak him in there? He's pretty mobile, and maybe the whole injury piece to his core ended up taking away from a lot of that.
Yeah, that's a good one. You mentioned the Hall of Fame game happened about an hour or two before this.
Yep.
Shout out Dorian Thompson-Robinson, DTR, UCLA alum.
Yep.
Led the Browns to a comeback victory. No big deal.
Probably
the best quarterback in Cleveland.
And overcame a pass interference that didn't get called on the 1-yard line with about a minute left. That was insane. This dude was on his back, and I'm like, oh, man. But, yeah, I think maybe that's something that the refs aren't going to call near the end of the games, right? They did it in the Super Bowl. Maybe it's a point of contention. We saw it in the Hall of Fame game.
Yeah, if that wasn't the last couple minutes, they probably throw the flag.
Yep.
But my last pick here, we didn't deconflict these, so I was worried we might, cross streams on a couple of these guys. This one, I know we're not going to cross streams on. You're not high on him. Reaching down a little further, so I had 2 picks in the 5th round. This one's in the 10th. It's Geno Smith. Mm-hmm. I've got 3 words for you, Nate. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and JSN, and Kenneth Walker, and Zach Charbonnet. Someone on the staff, we have a staff, right?
Yes.
They might need to check the math on this, but Seattle, they're loaded with talent. And Geno finished as the QB5 last year, kind of came out of nowhere. And this year, folks may be sleeping on him a little bit. ESPN has him as the QB16. I think his value, his draft spot needs to be a little bit higher than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. They had the number 1 offense in football last year, and nobody seems to be talking about him. And they add a weapon like JSN. I'm under the mindset that this is more of a Derek Anderson thing. We saw one big year out of this guy, right? And then people are just going to catch up. And that's what happened to them at the end of the last year too, right? It kind of fizzled out as it went. Does JSN change some of that stuff? Kenneth Walker, health issues here and there, whatever like that. Charbonnet, can he pass block really well at the NFL level? It remains to be seen, but that's a pretty good one for a breakout candidate. Mine here is kind of just on a hunch. My 3rd and last one. Guy comes from a blue-collar city, has a blue-collar coaching staff, blue-collar team. He also has George Pickens and forgotten Deontay Johnson. Now he has a healthy Najee Harris. He's entering his 3rd year under Matt Canada's offense, and if there's going to be a leap, it feels like it's got to be this year. I think that we could end up seeing what we saw out of like a Trevor Lawrence type of thing last year. He seems to be having more confidence in training camp with the deep ball. Granted, again, one-on-one drills, that's what it's meant to do, but he feels more confident. I think we see a big jump out of George Pickens as well. My 3rd one's going to be Kenny Pickett.
I'd like to see a highlight where George Pickens doesn't just completely manhandle one of the corners and throws him to the ground.
Yeah.
He's making good catches, but he is definitely committing some OPI.
Yeah, every one of them's offensive pass interference. Every one of them has no separation from any of the corners as well, too,
None.
right? And then you're going to have safeties over the top. But I don't know. There's something about Kenny Pickett. It just feels like a hunch, a gut thing to where he's one of those guys that's going to go undrafted in drafts that could potentially be in that, top 12 range, like flirt with that top 10, right at the 10 to 12 mark or whatever, that if you're going to punt quarterback, right? Say you get a Travis Kelce in the 1st or something like that, you can't really afford too much to spend on an elite quarterback at that point. You kind of want to fill some other spots in your roster, especially in a league like, ours or whatever, where we're 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and 2 flexes in a full PR. So we're starting 7 position players outside of the tight end. If you're waiting all the way back into the back end, Kenny Pickett seems like one that's going to be able to do a little bit, in my opinion. But
yeah, I can see that. And I think we talked about it on mine or maybe yours a couple episodes ago. But first half of the season last year, Kenny Pickett dipped above 70 PFF passing grade 1 time. And then the second half of the season, he dipped below it just 1 time, hitting 80 and 90 a couple times. So he definitely showed like a lot of the right things kind of trending upwards towards the end of the season. So I can see that happening, hitting the top 12.
Yep. And they're going to win ball games too, right? And really that team kind of rolls with, is TJ Watt healthy or not? The dude stays healthy, then the offense has some more room to cook. But I think Najee had a lot to do with that too. You're not getting a lot of that dump off passes as the field gets stretched or anything like that. Him being hurt with a foot, ankle, or whatever it was. So, all right, let's move on. A little preview of some of the things that we're going to be doing going forward or whatever like that, which we'll talk about later on before we get out of here. But it's fantasy draft season, and if you play in a 12-team league like you shouldn't be playing in 10-team leagues. And if you are, you need to be playing like 2 quarterback or something like that, or like forcing people to use more roster spots. Don't be having this 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receivers, tight end, and a flex. That's just not fun to have all-stars everywhere. You're not going to separate yourself from the competition or anything that much. But we only need 12 quarterbacks in fantasy football, Tony. So let's rank our top 12 quarterbacks for the 2023 season. This would be a good way for us to check our analysis or our thoughts or whatever like that after the season. We'll start from 12 and work our way to 1. And then we're also going to reference what tiers we have these guys in. So in my top 12, I have it broken out into 3 tiers. So tier 1, 2, and 3. So we'll start with tier 3 all the way up. We'll mark where we start tier 2 and then where we start tier 1. If you want to start with your number 12, and we'll go back and forth with our 12.
Just one at a time.
Yeah, we'll do one at a time.
Okay. Number 12, I have Tua Tagovailoa. ESPN. So my baseline for this was looking at the ESPN ADP or draft list, since that's our site of record for this league, right?
Yep.
And I also broke my list into 3 tiers.
Nice.
And I'm also taking a fantasy approach to this. I know it might vary, right? If we're talking football, it's Mahomes number 1, but this is fantasy, so it's not Mahomes.
Yeah, I went
spoiler.
I went fantasy as well.
Good. So yeah, number 12, Tua Tagovailoa. ESPN has him at 13. Tua had the concussions last year. We know about those. And to be honest, that's probably our only reservation and why he's not higher. But he's here at 12, and he averaged 18 points per game in 2022, which put him in the same territory as guys like Geno, who finished in the top, I think, 6 or 5, Kirk Cousins and Daniel Jones. All those guys inside the top 10. He's got Corvettes at receiver. He's got Mike McDaniel calling plays. So that's that Shanahan McVay upbringing, which really gets the people going. So yeah, he's at the back of tier 3 for me, but I can see him finishing anywhere between 7 and 12, which coincidentally is this entire tier for me.
Nice. I think I got 7 through 12 here as well too. I think that is my tier 3. And then I have,
perfect.
Yeah. So
yeah, I took the list that you recommended, though. 1 through 3, 4 through 6, and 7 through 12.
Yeah. All right. So I have my number 12. I have Daniel Jones. So finished as a QB 7 in 2022. In his first year under Mike Kafka as offensive coordinator and his play caller. Some history on Mike Kafka. He was hired by Andy Reid in 2016. He became the quarterback's coach in 2018. You also know what happened in 2018? Patrick Mahomes won his first Pro Bowl and MVP. Or went to his first Pro Bowl and won the MVP. Last year, he had 2 games under 10 fantasy points, and he did have 700 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground. I would expect that to regress just a little bit. They did add a bunch of weapons around him, so you got guys like Darren Waller, Saquon's still there, Darius Slayton's still there. They drafted Jalen Hyatt. They bring in Paris Campbell, and then also have Sterling Shepard still on the staff. So whether he can get healthy or not.
Did you see his camp highlight?
I haven't.
No OPI. He broke someone's ankles.
Yeah.
It was a nasty
the
cut.
Jalen Hyatt one. Yeah.
Yeah. So it looks good. He's looking really good.
Yeah. And last season, he only had 3,200 passing yards and only 15 passing touchdowns. I'd expect that to go up with the guys that he has around him. There's enough weapons for a guy to have a few hundred yards extra and a handful more touchdowns I see here. I just expect that other people would have I'm projecting people to have other bigger leaps in production than Daniel Jones. Some of those things that he has are like, 60-yard runs and stuff like that, but his wheels and stuff like that keep him going. And if they can sustain some health issues and stuff like that, Daniel Jones, I would be comfortable drafting in a 1 quarterback league if I'm punting all the way back to the back end or something like that.
Yeah, he was the tough one for me. He was on the bubble. I didn't include him in this list, though ESPN did have him inside the top 12. At number 11 for me, I have Deshaun Watson, so ESPN has him at 8. So I've got him a couple picks back. Dude was out of the league for 2 years, struggled in his limited playing time last year. It makes sense. So trying to project how he is or how he does with a full offseason, as the guy's kind of tough. Kevin Stefanski wants to run the ever-living shit out of the ball, and they will. So I think that kind of caps Watson still in a little bit and pushes him down to the back of tier 3. They also have to play a lot of tough defenses, both in the North and out of division / out of the conference. And the Browns are good for 1 or 2 of those Gale Force win games, right?
Yep.
So I think that'll just push him down just a little bit. He's still another guy who I think he could finish anywhere in this tier, though. I do like him. I think he has upside.
Cool. My number 11 is Russell Wilson. So last year he finished with 3,500 passing yards and 18 touchdowns.
That's right.
And it was completely horrible and terrible. If you said that he had more passing yards than Daniel Jones or some of these other guys, or he was only, 40 yards away from being Trevor Lawrence, you'd think I was insane because they were so bad, right? So I could see him adding another 510 touchdowns somewhere around this mark, right? Wide receiver health is obviously going to be a concern. He just lost KJ Hamler and Tim Patrick, but they still have Judy and Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton's going to play that Marquise Colston type role within this offense at the position that he runs in the X. Mm-hmm. The crazy thing is that Russell Wilson last year only scored 211 fantasy points, right? Which was quarterback 17. If you add 4 points to his game, right? So we're talking another 40 yards a game and a passing touchdown, not just one passing touchdown a game, or 40 yards and a passing touchdown every 2 games, right? On average, right? Mm-hmm. He ends up with 279 fantasy points, and he's quarterback 11, not even a point behind Jared Goff at 10. And people like Jared Goff and what the Lions are going to do, and everybody drops Amon-Ra super high and Hawkinson, and people are excited about a guy who's suspended for 6 weeks and only made 2 plays in his time that he was playing, and Jameson Williams or whatever like that. One big bomb and a run. That was it. Guy absolutely dog shit the rest of the time. But yeah, he goes to 10, right? You add 5 points a game. That puts him at 296 fantasy points. He's quarterback 7, sandwiched between Geno Smith and Daniel Jones last year. That's 5 points a game. This is 40, 60 yards a game or whatever like that for an offense who couldn't move the ball or score points last year. And then if you add 6 points a game, he ends up with 313 fantasy points. QB5, taking Justin Fields' spot. Only Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, and Jalen Hurts are better than him. 6 points a game for Russell Wilson in an offense that should be able to zoom. They're going to pass a lot to the running back. We'd expect them to excel on offense, be able to score 18 points a game, essentially, right?
Yeah.
To be able to be competitors in that division. So I have him at 11. Just there's some concerns of whatever it could be. And like I said before, a lot of these other guys have more upside or whatever like that. Russell Wilson is getting older or whatever, but I have a lot of faith that he's going to be able to make a big jump and get into that top 12.
Yeah, Sean Payton's there. He brought in his coaches. So I think there's definitely some upside with Russell Wilson. You mentioned Tim Patrick and KJ Hamler going down or being released and retiring from the league. Yeah, he also has Marvin Mims. That's Sean Payton's guy they drafted, and Greg Dulcich. I think he'll be a pretty good pass catching tight end for them. So he still has plenty of weapons. I dig the pick.
And the division is going to score points, right? Kansas City is going to score points. They also let up points. The Chargers are going to score.
I'm weary of this division because we said every single game last year in the AFC West was going to be a blowout.
Yeah, a shootout. Yeah.
Or shootout, sorry. It wasn't.
Yeah, I think that's what people see.
Teams bombed.
People also see that out of the AFC North this year, and some part of me fears that that's going to happen there, and then it's going to come out of the West this year.
All right, 10. Number 10, I got Geno Smith. I mentioned before this, he is ESPN's 16th quarterback coming off the board. So he's way, way back in their rankings. I think he deserves to be higher. As I mentioned, that Seattle offense is loaded with weapons, and it's coached well enough to know how to employ those guys. Mentioned earlier, Geno finished as the QB5 last year. So why he's so far back on ESPN is just beyond me. I'm splitting the difference here and putting him in the middle of tier 3.
Nice. I went with my number 10 being Justin Fields. So he does have a ton of rushing upside here. And it'll all kind of come down to, can he throw the forward pass at the NFL level with monsters rushing him? And if he can, he'll far exceed this. But I'd rather wait and see. I'd rather not take that chance because while he has the rushing upside, so did Colin Kaepernick until he didn't have the rushing upside after a season of doing it. He did excel at passing that next year, but he ended up a year or two later on being irrelevant in the NFL. So I do worry about that with Justin Fields. But DJ Moore, the more I see of stuff though, the more I fear that I'm going to be out on this and I'm going to miss out. But I have to stick to whatever I believe and then see if it works and then maybe adjust later on because I only have one example and the one example is Colin Kaepernick. So that is it.
Interesting.
That is my 10.
Fields in tier 3. I'm assuming you have Herbert or something up in tier 2, something like that. Okay. My 9th one here is Kirk Cousins. ESPN has him at 11. So I actually have him up a couple spots, but he was QB7 in 2022. He loses an aging, decrepit Adam Thielen. He loses an aging, decrepit Dalvin Cook. In the Vikings, they did lose a lot on defense. They brought in Brian Flores to kind of help there. But they did add Jordan Addison, and Minnesota's likely to be in the 600 to 650 pass attempt range again in 2023 with Kevin O'Connell, which, if you project that out, puts him firmly inside tier 3 here. You like that, Nate?
I like it.
You like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see that part of quarterback where he's talking about how that was about his van. You're
no, I didn't see that.
The whole part about him, it's shows a little bit of his life, how his wife dresses him, it's just basically they just go on how the internet makes fun of Kirk Cousins because he's the typical dad who is rolling in Cole's cash or whatever like that. Yeah, apparently someone was talking shit about his van or whatever like that. And it came from whoever that news network or whoever was holding that camera, that company. So he was like, you like that? Because the guy was like, I don't like that. I don't like that van. So it was nothing about football. It's pretty funny. My number, 9 is going to be Tua. So if it weren't for a significant injury concern here, I'd have him a couple slots higher, probably pushing that, tier B or whatever like that. And like I said before, if you're playing in a 2 quarterback league, there's massive value with him being at quarterback 12 right now, as Mike White is his best backup in all of sports. And he's currently being drafted to the 7th round, right? And this is a guy who I think in this offense, not that I think, because I hate that word, that I see going above and beyond whatever his ADP is. And the people that end up having him are going to be those guys who had like Trevor Lawrence last year, right? Or Justin Fields, and someone took a shot on that because he runs the ball, but then he didn't, but then they held on to him and he ended up being a league winner near the end. So that's what I can see out of Tua.
Okay. I like it. You're factoring a little more upside, a little more ceiling there. So my number 8 pick, not going to like this one. It's Justin Herbert. ESPN had him at 7, so I've got him back 1. Massive. Yeah. Massive weapons. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. I tossed Gerald Everett in there. Not great in the stamina department, but he's good. And Quentin Johnson, the rookie. They also brought in Kellen Moore. You've talked about that at length. So the passing offense should be in pretty good shape. Not much by way of rushing and for Herbert. And I think anywhere in this tier would be a good spot for Herbert, but he finished as the QB 11 and 22, playing through that injury, playing through Mike Williams and Keenan Allen missing a pretty good chunk of time between the two of them, and then playing through a handful of offensive line injuries. So I'm all systems go with the Chargers in 2023. Maybe not as high as you, but I think he could easily finish 7, 8, 9 amongst these quarterbacks we're talking about here.
All right. My number 8 is Deshaun Watson. So 1, allegations are behind him. Nobody's asking those questions anymore. Like 1, maybe 2 every now and then, but they're not getting any answers. So it's kind of a dead story, right? So maybe they hit it up in the middle of the season if they're 5-1 or whatever, 4-2 of how's it feel to be, past all that. This is this. Well, not past it because you keep bringing it up. I just want to play football. But he's still got Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and the best running back that he's ever played with, right? And the best running back, I believe, in the entire NFL, which opens up a bunch of gaps. They're going to be able to pass them the ball and stuff like that too. And that keeps safeties down. Strong safety is going to be playing a little bit closer to the line. Maybe they get a single high. A lot of the times, play action off of that because people were worried about the run game. Does he start to, use his feet a little bit more or something like that? But it all kind of remains to be seen. But as of right now, on the beginning of August, I got Deshaun Watson at 8.
I don't know if it's just because like we're digging through these quarterback rankings and these tiers, but like I feel like we have so many good quarterbacks,
and they're different.
They have different.
You've
like,
said
strengths.
A bunch of guys I don't even have in my list.
Yeah. I struggled to like keep a few of the guys outside of the top 12 in the top 12 or vice versa. So this year is going to be interesting. We got a lot of talent. Single quarterback league should have no problem drafting a guy. But my number 7 pick is Trevor Lawrence. ESPN has him at 9, so I got him up a couple spots. T-Law has some rushing upside. He has a new weapon in Calvin Ridley, and we all like this team to take the AFC South. I have him at the top of this tier, and I like his 2023 prospects a lot, but I don't think he's going to be able to catch the guys I have in tier 2.
Yeah. I got capping out my tier 3 is going to be Lamar Jackson, barring health. The only thing that I could see stopping him, and my real big concern, is he hasn't been able to throw outside the numbers towards the sidelines for his entire career. He's a big deep shot player, attacks the middle of the field really well based off of what they can do. Because you obviously have to hold some linebackers in that offense, the way they used to run the ball like crazy or whatever like that, and they come out in 2 wide receiver sets for the majority of the time instead of 3-4 wide receivers. That's going to change. But my concern with that is that if he can't make those throws towards the sidelines, I think the turmoil is going to turn up in Baltimore, because I think that a guy like OBJ isn't going to stay quiet with that, right? He didn't go there. Everybody believes Lamar's this thing or whatever like that. But what if he's like Baker Mayfield was? Like, you think that OBJ is going to be like, yeah, I came here to play with a Baker Mayfield type guy who can't throw me the ball or doesn't see me open and all that kind of stuff. And then we also
he'll bring his dad to one of those games so fast.
Yeah. And if OBJ's not happy, the team's not happy. Let's just put it that point, right? Like, yeah, I think that people forget that based off the way he was with the Rams, but they won a Super Bowl. Like, obviously the guy's going to be happy. He's playing with one of the better wide receivers in the entire league and a pretty decent quarterback in Matt Stafford. He's not better than Jared Goff, but he's pretty decent. Oh my God. Right?
What's the Super Bowl count?
Huh?
Matt Stafford won.
Yeah.
Jared Goff.
You look at what Sean McVay did, where he cucked up against Bill Belichick because he finally just ran that Fangio,
That was Vic Fangio's fault. Vic Fangio did that.
A 6-1 type defense, and they just had the defensive ends, right? There's some pretty good tape out there where someone broke it all down of how the Patriots stopped the Rams offensive thing or whatever and how they did it all, because it was very basic. And it's like Sean McVay never knew what to do because he didn't learn how to do other blocking schemes and stuff like that. He evolved after that. But
maybe basic, no Cooper Kupp, Todd Gurley on one leg. That probably factored in a little bit too.
But outside of that, his legs do create a solid floor for Lamar Jackson. But if we expect him to throw the ball and his passing numbers to go way up, there's not going to be enough time for him to run for the same amount of yards that he's ran this entire time. They just paid him a big contract. The guy's got tons of injuries to his legs. Do you think they're telling him and they're shaping the offense and telling Monken to be like, hey, we're still going to run this guy, right? Like we did before or whatever like that. No way in hell when you got $240 million, $220 million on the line, and the guy's going to be sitting with tons of injury history, right? So that is my concern. The rushing upside is going to be drastic. Like in half type of thing, right? Like he's not going for 1,000 yards, 900 yards or something like that. I see, 400 to 500 yards, pretty average for these, big time running quarterbacks and stuff like that. But if they're going to try to pass the ball to keep him healthy and stuff like that, it's going to come out of the rushing department, and you just don't get as many yards or as many fantasy points for it.
He said he's passing for 6,000 yards, so that's going to make up for the lack of rushing production.
It's like Justin Fields, right? He's going to pass for 4,000 yards this season. Like, oh man.
Wasn't that a stat? Like the Bears have never had one or something?
Yeah, they've never had a 4,000 yard passer, which is crazy because they had Jay Cutler.
And that's nuts. That dude just slanging all over the place.
Cutler, Alshon Jeffrey, Brandon Marshall, and I used to love Cutler in fantasy football because it's like he would be so cheap in like daily fantasy because he stunk, but at the same time, like nobody would play him, so you get him at lower percentages, and then they'd be down 21 in the fourth quarter. He'd scored 3 touchdowns. They lose by 1 touchdown. And you're like, you just got all your fantasy production in 1 quarter. It was awesome.
Yeah. He was fun.
Yep.
I think I see where we're different here.
That caps off my tier 3. So
moving into tier 2. And for me, I think you said it's the same for you, 4, 5, and 6.
I have 2 in my tier.
Oh, you have 2? Yeah. Okay. So tier 2 for me is going to be QBs 4 through 6. And the first one here is number 6, Justin Fields. So ESPN actually has him as 6. So I'm in line with that. From week 7 on, Fields was the QB5 last season, averaging 25.5 fantasy points per game, crushing it on the ground. The Bears got him a true wide receiver 1 in DJ Moore, much better than what they had. They were throwing to I don't even remember the guy's name. Darnell Mooney was one of, I can't remember the other guy's name, but
Velus Jones.
29-year-old rookie Velus Jones.
He's fast, though. He's fast. I like him in Madden.
Marcus Robinson was another one. So guys who are not number 1 wide receiver. So DJ Moore should alleviate that, but he shouldn't have to run nearly as much. He was averaging 10 carries per game, Fields was, which was tops in the league. And teams are going to be better prepared to deal with him on the ground. Not to say the running upside is going to go away. I think that's what keeps him in this tier 2. It's just going to cap his ceiling a little bit.
Yeah. What also scares me about Justin Fields is his, what are his natural instincts when a rush comes? Is he going to stay in the pocket, stand tall, take those hits, right? Like you see in
find that next read.
All these big quarterbacks, right? They're in there to the last second. A lot of times they're not seeing passes be completed and stuff like that. Or is he going to take off and run? Because when he takes off and runs, who knows what happens on the back end of that, right? Does he just go for the run, or does he continue to look to pass and keep his eyes upfield? So ready to cock it. But my number 6 is going to be Trevor Lawrence. So you talked about the addition of Calvin Ridley, but he passed for 4,100 yards last year and 25 touchdowns, and that was it, right? And a bunch of those came in one game, but 25 touchdowns, right? Can he throw for 2 touchdowns a game and get to 34? I think so, right? With the Calvin Ridley type, and you still have all the other weapons out there. Evan Ingram just got a contract. He's going to be playing and doing well too if he can stay healthy, but he looks to be a good fit for that offense. They want ETN to run for 1,400 yards, which is pretty wild, 1,400 to 1,600 yards. The coach came out and said today. But I can see Trevor Lawrence getting over that 30 touchdown mark. Another year under the offense, just taking a nice step forward. I think we all kind of just project that. So,
yeah, he'll run the ball a little bit too. I think I mentioned that. Number 5 for me, moving on here, Joe Burrow. ESPN has him at 4. He finished as the QB4 in 2022. He's got Chase, he's got Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, restructured his deal, so he'll be around. I know he's got the calf strain if you've been following along with camp stuff, but a month is more than enough time to heal up. I doubt he was going to play in the preseason anyways. And 4,500 yards and that 35 to 40 touchdowns is certainly in the cards for him, which has him firmly planted here in the middle of my second tier.
Yep. To finish up my second tier at the 5, I have Josh Allen. A lot of people have this guy at the 2 or whatever like that, or 3, but I got him at 5. One, he's entering his 6th season in the NFL, but he's only the age of 27, but 6 years in the NFL is a long time, especially when you're taking the beating that he does as well. I think that the acquisition of Damian Harris tells us that there's going to be less red zone running for a guy like Josh Allen. Granted, his instincts will take up and stuff like that, but he had 762 rushing yards last year and 7 touchdowns on the ground, which I could see going down to like 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. Cut off maybe like 200 of those yards or something like that. So that takes away a good, whatever that is, 20 to 30 points, 40 points or something like that on them this season, just with the addition of a guy like Damian Harris. He was just shy of 4,300 yards and he had a bum arm. So I think some of the passing can come down, but they also play the Jets twice, the Pats twice. They played Denver, the Eagles, and Dallas too, which are all teams that can get after the pass rush, have decent secondaries and stuff like that too. They also got to play the Dolphins twice, which is going to be a different defense and probably put a lot more stress on that team. I'm not a believer in Gabe Davis whatsoever. Diggs is getting another year older. They bring in a tight end that they're trying to flex out, run this Travis Kelce role because they keep getting smoked by it. So, you just do what teams are doing or whatever like that. And he seems to be playing really, really well as a, outside guy or whatever like that. But I don't know. I could just see him taking less of a rushing role here. They need to preserve the dude, see what these other teams are doing. Patrick Mahomes doesn't run for 700 yards, right? What did they end up doing? I think they're trying to mimic that. So I bump him down into 5th on the season.
I don't have the numbers here, but I think Allen finished as the number 2 quarterback last year. And he had that Bengals game, which pretty much got canceled before it really got underway, right? Like I think there was only like 1 or 2 scores up. If they play that game, I think he beats Mahomes. I think the way that game was going, it was going to be a shootout. I think he finishes the QB1, but I'll get to Allen. He's in a different tier. Finishing up my tier 2 here at the 4. I have Lamar Jackson. ESPN has him at 5, so I got him up 1 spot. He's a former league MVP. He can run the damn ball. He can throw it. Don't care what the haters say. Outside the numbers, inside the numbers. That was under Greg Roman. Todd Monken. I like how you say Monken. You say like Monken or something like that. Yeah. He's a Pokemon. Yeah. It's Monken. Todd Monken. He's in town, and he likes to throw first, ask questions later. But through 4 weeks last season, Lamar was the overall QB1, averaging almost 30 fantasy points per game. Then there was like a litany of injuries. Like Mark Andrews went down. Rashad Bateman went down. Lamar eventually got hurt. He's going to have Andrews back. Bateman's back. They added OBJ. You talked about him earlier. They added a speedy receiver in Zay Flowers. The team gave Lamar some weapons. They brought in a new play caller. They paid the quarterback. So it just feels like barring injury, the sky's the limit. So I've got him at the top of my second tier of this group. And he's probably the only one, if he stays healthy, that I would say could make a leap into tier 1.
Nice. I think you're wrong. Whatever.
That's fair.
Tier 1. My number 4 guy is Joe Burrow. So Joe Burrow, I just like that we know what we're going to get with them. They're on a mission. They are on a mission to win a Super Bowl, and it all runs through Joe Burrow. You got guys like Joe Mixon taking less money. I think that Joe Burrow is going to take less money to make some more room for other people to get signed, right? Like, this dude's going to get every deal he wants. Like, he's just the smoothest dude, the coolest dude in the NFL. And they're going to be able to market, and he's going to make all his money outside of the NFL, I think. So,
like that mink coat, sponsorship, cigars, headbands, everything. You name it.
Everything. The Cuban government is going to be, I don't know who they're, if they have their own government or their territory yet. I don't know.
He's going to build a relationship between the NFL and the Cuban government. Is that what you're saying?
That's what's going to happen, right?
Wow,
to get those good cigars and stuff like that. Embargoes are gone, I think, and stuff like that. So,
but
yeah, Joe Burrow, you just know what you're going to get. It's going to be a floor. Although I did write this before the injury. So the thing that does concern me is it's calf injury, right? They say it's a couple weeks or whatever like that. But some of those like fantasy doctors or whatever like that in these sports, science guys and stuff like that deal with the stuff say that this type of injury, if it's not completely dealt with and fully healed and rehabbed and stuff like that. And if he comes back at any point too early, like a day early, 2 days early, or whatever like that, these type of things tend to lead to Achilles injuries. So that is a concern there, because the dude's going to want to ball. He's going to want to play week 1.
Oh yeah.
But is it possible that he just misses a week or 2 and they're fine and they can make the playoffs or something like that? But if he comes back a little bit early, I'd see this going all the way down the tubes. So while he's in my tier 1, probably a guy that I'm going to avoid.
Yeah. So
because I have to draft him so high, right? Like you have to draft him within
early.
the first four rounds or whatever like that. That I just don't want to have that risk in my first 4 rounds, right? One of the guys I listen to, his name's Jeff Mans. He's a Sirius XM guy or whatever like that. But he talks about, your first few rounds or whatever like that. You're building a table, you're building a house, you're building a chair, which all those things have things in common, right? Stability, a foundation, 4 strong legs can hold the biggest human body in the world or whatever like that, right? So that's probably a guy that I have too many concerns about to draft him all the way up there. But for fantasy points wise, I think he's going to be up there. So tier 1.
Yeah, I Joe Burrow and I were very similar in our athletic build. We're very muscular. Joe Burrow, me, and Nick were all the same height.
Yeah.
So I've had a strained calf, and it was like a month before I was walking again. I know there's varying levels. I think there's like 3 or 4 levels of the severity of the strain, but it was like a month where I was able to like walk normal.
Yeah.
So they're saying 2 weeks. Season starts in a month. I wouldn't be surprised if he does sit out a couple weeks just to play it safe, because they are definitely in their Super Bowl window. They got to pay T. Higgins next year, Chase the year after, Joe Burrow probably this coming year. I know you're confident in him taking less money. I tend to agree, because Cincinnati's not going to pay all those guys. But yeah, I would be cautious with Joe Burrow for sure. Moving into tier 1 though for me. So this is QBs 1 through 3. I'll start with 3. This is a surprise here. I got Patrick Mahomes. ESPN has him as the number 1. For NFL purposes, he's the number 1. But for fantasy, I think this year he is the number 3 quarterback. He didn't have Tyreek Hill last season. Quietly put together a 5,200-yard season with 40 touchdowns. Just insane. He's likely the safest bet to finish as the overall QB1. But that's boring. I feel pretty confident penciling him in for 3, 2, or 1. I just like the 2 guys I have ahead of him a little bit more this year.
Yep. I'm going to go with my number 3 being Jalen Hurts. The shoulder injury at the end of the year in week 15, I believe it's against Dallas, cut out the last 3 weeks of the season, 2 weeks for fantasy, which is the last thing you need is your the number 1 point scoring quarterback in the league, right? He was outpacing Patrick Mahomes on a points per game basis by about 1 point a game or something like that. You don't need that, right? And he just got paid. So I don't think that, they add DeAndre Swift. They already had Miles Sanders, who was a good running back as well, too, right? They're fantastic at running the ball, taking advantage of everything that the defense is weak at, and they just kill that one pressure point at the defense where they stink. Their analytics department is by far the best, if not the second best behind the Chiefs. They're 1-2 or whatever like that. So I can just see this dude taking a lot less rushing, especially near the goal line, right? Granted, they do that tush push or whatever like that, and it didn't get banned, but all those runs that go to the outside towards the pylon and stuff like that, or these other runs, like I could see him get down earlier, or they just say, hey, hand it off, man, because we need you healthy. That shoulder thing bugged him all the way through the playoffs and stuff like that too, but he wasn't not going to play in the playoffs. So granted, they had the pretty big lead in the division. He could take some time off or whatever like that, but the injury stuff and how the team treats that after they pay a quarterback, I tend to try to worry a little bit about. So less rushing for Jalen Hurts this year has him at 3 for me.
Fair. I will get to Jalen Hurts. But before I do, I'm going to talk about my number 2 quarterback in this tier. That's Josh Allen. ESPN has him at 2. I think if the Bills didn't stumble a bit in the middle of last season, there was a little bit of a stretch where I don't know if they were figured out or they were just working on some things, or if they get to go ahead with their shootout with the Bengals. We talked about that towards the end of the year where DeMar Hamlin went down. Allen likely beats Mahomes for the top spot. I have it pulled up. Mahomes finished with 429 points. Allen finished with 412. So that's 17 points. They finished that shootout with the Bengals. I think he beats them for QB1 last year. But like with Mahomes, I'm good with Allen finishing anywhere between 1 through 3. I'll pencil him in here for number 2. Obviously, you know who my number 1 is, but I like Allen at 2.
Yep. My number 2 is going to be Justin Herbert. So Justin Herbert, talked about it earlier. He played hurt pretty much all last year. The only quarterback last year to have over 5,000 yards of passing. This is just passing numbers, 5,000 yards. He'll play a full 17 games, while I can see others taking off, the second half of week 17 or something like that, right? Like you got to worry about some of that stuff with these teams that may have the division locked up. They need that last win. They're up by, 14, 15, or 21 points in the second half or something like the Eagles. They pounce, and then they kind of ride, right? That's what they do. Their defense knows what the opposite team's going to do. They're able to rush create pressure, and then they could run the ball down your throat and tire out your defense. So it's pretty demoralizing, demotivating for a team to be like, oh, shoot, we got to come back down. They got pass rushers. By the way, they're also fantastic at running the ball, and they're going to have 8-minute drive here in the third quarter. So opens up a lot of opportunities for them. But I can see Justin Herbert having to play all of them. I have them third in the division as well, too. So behind the Denver Broncos and the Kansas City Chiefs. The offense is going to stretch the field, and it's going to be bombs away. I talked a little bit earlier about how they're not going to do all these dink and dunk passes to Austin Eckler as long as these guys are healthy. And I still think that even if they aren't healthy, they're not going to pass it all the way down the field. It's not like the Cowboys had crazy wide receivers and they didn't pass to the running back. They had CeeDee Lamb, and that seems like all they had. So I don't see a lot of those dump off passes, which means there's going to be a larger ADOT for all those receivers. He's going to be throwing the ball forward, hence the forward pass, not the backwards pass or the line of scrimmage pass. And he only had 25 touchdowns a year ago, and talked about how he's going to, he's going to tickle that 40 mark or whatever like that under Kellen Moore. There's not going to be a lot of Austin Eckler passing game. And we'll talk about that on your show later on as we go through the AFC coaching changes and stuff like that.
Yep.
But the big point is Austin Eckler caught more passes last year than the entire backfield for the Dallas Cowboys got attempts and targets. So to think that that's going to happen in an offense and that offense was more West Coast because it was Mike or whatever that dude's name is, who's their coach, the Cowboys.
McCarthy.
Yeah, Mike McCarthy, right? He had Kellen Moore running that West Coast offense. Kellen Moore brings in his offense. Eric Coryell is going to be down the field or whatever like that. And Mike McCarthy's offense, as anybody who watched the Green Bay Packers, does a lot of stuff to the running backs and stuff like that. And they still didn't do it. So I don't think that you're going to get a lot of that kind of stuff out of this offense. Forward passes, down the field, big wide receivers, jump balls in the end zone, just bodied up like, hey, post the dude up, just throw it to me, I'll catch it one-handed type of thing is going to end up happening in this offense. So I got Justin Herbert taking that massive leap. This is his breakout year. I think he's going to be the guy that you want to have in fantasy football. The teams around the division are going to score some points. And it's not like the Raiders have a good defense. It's not like the Chiefs have a great defense. They have some good players or whatever like that, but they're going to let up points. Denver might be a problem, but Justin Herbert, 5,000 yards with like no core to his body last year. This dude could probably pass for like 500 extra yards on the season and another 15 touchdowns. If it weren't for Patrick Mahomes, this dude would be my number one.
Yeah, and here at the TacoCorp headquarters, we really, really love it when quarterbacks are tickling that 40 number.
I
think you said that like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is going to be my thing, the tickling. I like the tickle. So,
you got me giggling over that. All right, my overall QB1 is Jalen Hurts. ESPN has him at number 3. So my argument here for this is Philly had a lot of games where they were able to take their foot off the gas pedal pretty much the entire second half in 2022. I glanced at the schedule or the scores from last year, and there were seven or 8, like 2 to 3 score wins that Philly had. So you're talking about half the season where they really didn't need to, push the ball downfield for half of a damn football game. A lot of meat left on the bone. But with some turnover on defense, better competition within the division, and just more film on the Eagles, I think teams should be able to make things a little bit more interesting against them, which means more Jalen Hurts arm and more Jalen Hurts legs, just more Philly pushing the ball on offense, which means more fantasy points. I feel strongly that he could overtake Mahomes and Allen this year. Kind of a projection thing, right? Not really based on the finishes last year. Otherwise, I'd have him at number 3 or 4. And I feel like he's the only guy who can do it, barring like any major injury from Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. Really high on Jalen Hurts. I like him a lot this year.
I like that you bring up not based off of like last year and where they're at and stuff like that, because I think that's what my biggest gripe with a lot of fantasy analysts, right, is they always talk about what happened last year, right? And they project that as like a like kind of like the floor or whatever
This is
like
the
that.
baseline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good place to start. Hey, where was this guy last year? Right. And that's why I like doing the coaching breakdown stuff or whatever like that
Yeah.
is
Scheme's important.
what ends up, what changes here with what's the new personnel, what's the new coaching staffs, often there's like 18 new faces and places across the NFL as far as head coaches, offensive, defensive coordinators, right? So, and players moving everywhere. So what has to be true and what changes to be able to adjust that, not just based off of this guy's a good football player, because there's good football players all over the NFL, right? We see guys that Christian Kirk was a bum and everybody thought he was a bust, and he's getting mocked for this contract that he gets with Jacksonville last year. But when you realize the position that he's going to play in that offense, it's like, oh no, this dude's like a league winner, right?
It's like a bargain.
Yeah.
After the fact.
And you're like, well, what happened? Oh, because he's actually a good football player. They're all good football players, right? We're comparing them against each other, but the talent really doesn't matter as much as what place they're going to be put in and what they're going to do or something like that. So I'd like that you said that based off what you project him to end up doing as opposed to, and why, as opposed to just, he's going to get better or he's going to regress or, whatever like that. So like,
what do we do with that?
Yeah. People always say
Not
like,
much.
Positive regression, negative regression, or whatever, but they never really tell you why. Like, oh, that's going to regress because the average of NFL players no, it's not based off the average of NFL players. Because if that were the case, Derrick Henry would suck ass, and he doesn't. So I'm not drafting Derrick Henry. But anyways, my number one, obviously, there's nothing to say. It's Patrick Mahomes. I also like to do a lot of tiering stuff based off of and like who I want to draft in certain positions, especially this high in the draft, of just what is my floor? Do I know what I'm going to get? I know what I'm going to get out of Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be electric. It's going to be in that top 4 area. There's got to be a lot of things that go wrong for the Kansas City Chiefs not to be one of the best offenses in the league and for it to be centered around Patrick Mahomes. The guy can make every single throw that there is in baseball, in football, and cricket, whatever he's playing or whatever like that. Like the dude is just good and he's smart. The coaching staff is smart. The floor is there. You can take him as your number 1 quarterback on the year, and you're good with him being a top 4 because he's going to be within 10, 15 points of all the other guys. You're maybe missing out on a point a game. You don't have to worry about this dude being like, hey, I got Justin Fields at 4, or I got there's people out there and Justin Fields is going to be the guy, and number 1 type of thing, right? This rushing floor is going to be passing more, all this kind of stuff. But it's like, well, if one of those things isn't true, Justin Fields is like a 9. It has the potential to be a 9. Like he has a really big swing and a gap. Same thing with like Tua or something like that. The gap is so massive of what it can be to where if you take them so high, you end up killing your entire team because now you're so far behind the curve in the other positions that you need to do. If you're going to take one of these elite quarterbacks, you need to take one that is going to play, is going to be there, and is going to produce regardless of what the circumstances are, right? Like I do say that Josh Allen, I think, is going to regress a little bit here and there, but you know what you're going to get. It's pretty safe, right? It's pretty safe with Joe Burrow and Hurts and Herbert and all. You know what you're going to get out of these guys. Create that safety at the position where you can also get an edge. So Patrick Mahomes, my number 1.
Boring, Nate. So boring.
We'll talk about boring stuff at other times or whatever like that. So we've talked about a lot of your boring lifestyle. So whether we talked about, I think an unreleased episode that we did was around Valentine's Day and we did baby making music. I don't think I ever edited that because Brandon's audio was so fucking terrible that I couldn't do it. So
that's available on our OnlyFans account under the premium content.
Word to the wise: don't record a podcast on a gaming headset you got from Walgreens. It's just not good. Just use your headphones for your phone or whatever like that.
The TacoCorp budget was very low back then.
But that's that. So all right, let's draft and then we'll get into some other stuff here. But let's draft. So no. We got to talk about it because it's going to lead into what our draft is. So Tony, we've had some talks over the last few weeks and stuff like that between you, me, Matt, and the entire staff, that's it here. So even my children about changing up about what we do for our podcasting or our shows and stuff like that. So we're going to be kind of combining our 2 shows into one. Not have separate efforts trying to do a lot of the same stuff and everything like that. We started our shows based off of our fantasy football leagues to get people to communicate and talk to each other a lot more, right? We found over the time that we like talking a lot more sports and data and analytics and, actual X's and O's and
Yeah.
other stuff like that, and have a little bit of fun in here and there, whatever that relates to how we do fantasy football. And that's why we draft every single week or whatever like that. But rather than having two shows, we're going to combine them into one. So we'll have a few more episodes as we go by. You want to talk to the people a little bit about what they can expect, I guess you would say, from, let's say, in season, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do in the off season. I think we kind of understand a little bit, but we'll take some feedback from the listeners as well.
Yeah, you forgot to mention Baby Laurel.
Oh yeah,
Baby
Baby
Laurel had
Laurel.
a big voice in what we're doing. So yeah, very important decision maker for us. But we've been, dude, we got through almost 200 episodes. When it's all said and done, we will have put out 200 episodes.
Nice.
I think you're in the mid 90s now.
Yep.
I think this is 93 or something. Yeah, we do very similar shows. We talk football, we talk fantasy, we have some fun. We introduce league mates. We have a lot of the same league members. So we are just going to combine our efforts. We're going to have shows similar to this format, but we're also going to do, once we get in season, what we're bringing over, Matt Graham and I, is going to be weekly money line picks. So we're going to give you guys all 16 games. Once we get into bye weeks, whatever, that number will be lower, but all 16 money line picks. We're going to give you guys like our spread picks or our line picks. And then we'll talk a little bit of fantasy in there, maybe some news in notes there, but just have a lot more, I guess, fantasy and like betting content on a consistent basis for Nate, and just kind of putting everything under the same flag. Cause we're, like I said, we're doing a lot of the same things. We may as well join forces and see like what we can get when we're all under the same roof, you know?
Yeah, I think it'd be good for what we do for editing and stuff like that too, because we're doing things solo on our own for our own shows, right? I do all the post production for this, you do all the post production for yours. So based off of each other's schedules and stuff like that, right? Like you got a whole family and a wife in the house too, right? Who's, a school teacher in elementary. So work doesn't stop when she leaves work, like a lot of our stuff does, right? Like, hey, we don't have to, unless we have to do like some evaluation writing or whatever, but for the most part you could do that stuff at work and it stays there. Hers comes home, right? So you got a lot more responsibilities and stuff like that too, so I can help on that end a little bit, and then we can combine our forces for not coming up with separate ideas in our stuff and not want to step on it. And we had that whole beef era where we like went at each other about stealing each other's content and all that kind of stuff, and it was fun, right? But just combine them and just make more shows throughout the week, right? We'll see how that ends up turning out or whatever. We're gonna test run it for a season and a half or whatever like that, and figure out what we got going on so we can build a better thing going forward or whatever like that, and put more stuff out on one single channel. So you'll see the image change a little bit. I believe we're going to stay under the TacoCorp umbrella. We'll change it from TacoCorp Fantasy Football League to TacoCorp Sports, so we can open up as the off season goes, talk about other stuff, but a lot more sports talk, maybe not so many hot take stuff of like just regular, buzzword stuff or, whatever the trending topic is and stuff like that. And just trying to be like funny and shit like that, but actually do stuff that we like talking about, right? That maybe our league mates don't want to talk about, or, some other people don't want to hear or whatever like that. Like, let's just talk what we enjoy doing, right? We enjoy researching. You enjoy writing. I enjoy writing too. We'll figure out somewhere to put that. Maybe it's like Blogger or something like that before, because we don't got the budget to have a website right now or nothing like that, right? But figure out all that kind of stuff, but and just kind of see where it goes. We got some time before you get out of your profession to, get some reps in, figure out the timing and tempo and all this kind of stuff. So it's a good project to work on for a few years and stuff like that. And then give us some feedback on what you guys think about it going forward or whatever like that. So some of that data stuff where we talked about fantasy drafting and stuff like that, or, just fun topics that revolve around the sport that we're talking about at the time, but relevant to what you can actually use or talk about with your friends or anything like that, and provides a little bit of value, whether it's comedic, whether it's, learning a different perspective or whatever than what's out there. Because we talk offline a lot, Tony, and I'm like, it bugs me. I can't listen to all this talk because it's the same shit. Like everybody does the same shit, right? Everybody's about consensus rankings and stuff like that. If you're drafting off consensus rankings, you're going to lose your leagues because everybody's drafting off of them. Where's your own opinions, right? And stuff like that. Where's your own talk? Like you can't do what everybody else is doing. It's the same thing where everybody's like, well, running backs are going to fall. Yeah, that's great, right? But if you can go in the first round and get you it's falling to like the end of the second round in some drafts and stuff like that, is like a Nick Chubb or something like that, that's going to put you far above all the other people. And looking at, we'll talk about it as we go, and we'll probably hit running backs in the next episode or whatever like that. But Austin Eckler, people drafting that dude 5, 6, 7 or something like that. The number 2 running back off the board behind CMC. I think CMC is a problem at number 1 as well too, right? But people just like it's what they've done in the past. Austin Eckler's receiving upside is just not there. You got to have your own opinions and why, and I think that's what we like doing. So we're going to provide a lot more of that to the show rather than just coming up with hot topics of what's trending and stuff like that.
We really, really like being right, even if at the expense of us being wrong occasionally. Like we're willing to put our necks out there. But I lost a lot of sleep when we were having that TacoCorp 58 West King beef.
Oh, it was easy for me.
I still haven't recovered.
It was easy for me because it was like, oh, what's gonna trigger people? Like I'm good at that. Like that's why I'm single. I did it in my own house. That was a mistake. Fuck. But yeah,
you live and learn.
So we're gonna be rebanding the show. So this will be the final episode of TacoCorp Fantasy Football League, as you know it. I guess you would say we'll do a lot of the same stuff, but as far as like segments and stuff like that, we'll shape them as we go and stuff and see how we like that better. A lot more get to the point stuff. We'll figure out how to do fun stuff and everything like that too. So I don't know if drafts are going to go away in some of the episodes, but
keep the drafts.
Yeah, we like the drafts. So we're going to draft right now. Since it's the final episode of TacoCorp as you know it, the same logo and all this kind of stuff and the naming, Fantasy Football League podcast and all that. We've named the episode The Last Supper. Shout out to our Lord and Savior, Tim Tebow. But we are going to draft our top 5 final meals. It's the end of an era. You got one meal until the end of your days. Tony, do you want the turn or do you want the number 1? Matt went off the number 1 last week because he thought he was going to pull a fast one with Dick Trickle. Shout out to you.
That would have been my first pick, and I would have taken the first pick.
Would have been the only time.
Make sure I secured that.
Yeah, wasn't even on my list, but he had to do it. So.
Fair. That's fair.
Guys taking their guys.
For this, I'll take the turn.
All right. My number 1 final meal is going to be a well-done steak with ketchup. Just like Patrick Mahomes, my number 1 quarterback, well-done steaks with ketchup. Maybe that spicy ketchup from Whataburger we talked about earlier, but number 1,
maybe
well-done steak, ketchup. Tony, you got 2.
I'm triggered. I use that all the time, and I'm triggered that you would even put that on your list.
You didn't put it on your list?
No.
Oh, so you went with actual meals. Okay.
No, I took this serious. I take religion very seriously. I don't. I'm not the most religious person. Some would say I'm out of practice.
I would say
I would say
that.
But if someone at a big dinner, like in the Last Supper, stood up and said, "Eat this bread. It is my body, and drink the blood of my covenant," we might question the mental stability of that person and probably not eat the bread. But times have changed. Meals have changed. So I've got a whole list here. I thought Matt was going to be on. I have like 15 meals ready to go. You took steak. That was like at the top of my list. I feel like a New York strip or something not well done would have been a good choice. But I'll start it off. I'll stick to my roots here. I'll go with the tour of Italy. So I'm talking lasagna, if anyone's been to Olive Garden. Spaghetti, stuffed ravioli, just marinara sauce everywhere. Garlic bread, salad with that Italian dressing. So sticking with the roots. Going with the tour of Italy with my first pick. And that's going to be a theme. I'm all over the place. My next one here, we're going to go to the South or maybe like the Midwest or Mideast. Barbecue feast. So ribs, tri-tip, some of Nate's tri-tip, maybe some smoked brisket, some pulled pork, baked mac and cheese. Did you like look up what these like prisoners ate as a last meal?
Yeah.
Dude, it's nuts. Like 10 pounds of food, just ice cream, peanut butter cookies, couple Snicker bars, 2 2-liter things of cola, 2 meat lovers pizzas, brisket. Like it was nuts, the meals they had. But for my second pick here, I'll throw some barbecue in.
Nice. All right. You totally whiffed on this because my number 2 final meal is going to be the yellow starburst. So yellow starburst, you don't have to worry about whether or not they're out there or not, right? Can we go find this luxury item or whatever like that? Yellow starbursts are abundant and they're the best one that is out there. Yellow starburst is my number 2. My number 3 is going to be 1 scoop of vanilla ice cream in a regular bowl. One
Not
scoop.
even on a cone.
Not even on a cone. Just
no sprinkles.
Nope. Just plain vanilla ice cream. Like not even vanilla bean. Just a straight up vanilla, like Kroger brand, great value.
Wow.
Something like it doesn't have to be nothing special. Just a simple vanilla ice cream in a bowl.
So I'm irritated. You have a well done steak with ketchup.
Mm-hmm.
You have yellow Starburst, and you have a scoop of vanilla. Are you just throwing this draft? I don't understand what you're doing here.
These are the greatest thing. Like simplicity. The basics, simple stuff. Don't get too complicated. The joys of life. Put them in there. That's what it
But the
is.
point of a final meal, like for people on death row, is like, hey, we are killing you shortly after this meal, but like we're going to treat you like a king and show you that we do kind of appreciate life, or we value life a little bit.
That is called gaslighting.
Man, there was I listened to a Stuff You Should Know. They recently released a podcast on like last meals
for
people on death row. They did. It's like in the last 24 hours. But I guess there was like some prisoner. I forget what he did. Probably some heinous crime, right? He was on death row.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't have been good. But he's like, yeah, I want this feast, like 10 pounds of food, all kinds of stuff. And I don't want to eat it. I want you to go give it to a homeless person that you find, downtown for what I forget what state or city this was in. And like the warden was like, no, we don't do charity. And not only did he not do that, but he didn't give that prisoner, I forget the dude's name. He didn't give him like his last meal. So pretty fucked up. Anyways, my third pick here, and I know what you're going to think with this pick. Tony's just pandering, but hear me out. Kangaroo barbecue.
Shout out to our Australian audience.
Shout out to the Aussies with a couple of golden gay times as dessert. You heard that right. Golden gay times.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah,
sounds like fun though, but don't Google that while you're at work.
Yeah, so you know what they say about those down under?
They like to pee on each other.
Treat yourself and a friend because it's hard to have a gay time on your own.
Nice.
That's a legit slogan. I didn't make that up. So, yep, go with some kangaroo. I've never had kangaroo. I think it'd be interesting to eat though.
Mm-hmm.
But this is another one, my fourth pick here, where you guys are going to accuse me of pandering. It's pierogi or Polish dumplings. Some say they are the equivalent of Italian ravioli, but they're often filled with cheese, potatoes, mushrooms, and they got like caramelized onions and lots of butter. So dipping into the Polish audience a little bit here and go with pierogi for my number 4.
Nice.
I'm all over the world, Nate.
There you go. Global icon here.
That's right.
Tony, formerly known as the host of the 58 West King podcast.
What you got? What you got for your next one?
I got next 2. Guess.
Yeah.
You might have it.
Pocket lint.
No. I almost chose the ham and cheese hot pocket because it's the worst hot pocket that's out there, right? So
oh god,
just put me out of my misery. Like I'm not trying to feel happy and then get blasted, whatever, out stoned or anything like that, right? So
yeah.
My number 4 is going to be the fried bologna sandwich. Take me back to my roots. Remind me just of who I am or whatever like that. Just the simplest thing. And for some reason, even if you got that good butter, maybe you got the government butter, maybe you throw on a piece of government cheese or something like that, right? It just takes you back to humbleness, a warm feeling in your heart of, I remember what it was like to be a child. Fried bologna sandwich is my number 4. And then, look, we're Americans. Me and you, Tony, have both spent time in the Middle East, right? And the one thing you can't get in the Middle East that everybody loves, pork, right? And the best part of the pork, bacon. But what's better than a big old plate of bacon? A big old plate of turkey bacon is my final pick.
Oh my
That is
God.
the one I'm going to go with. Tony, you're losing this draft. It's all said and done. It's all said and done. Don't even pick your last pick, but go ahead and pick your last pick.
You're trying to get canceled.
No.
I feel like you're trying to get canceled over this draft.
It's got to be a banger if we're going out like this. So
it's disgusting.
Yep. What's more disgusting is you're going to be a part of the TacoCorp Fantasy Football League podcast and bringing over your stank. So
I know
we got to.
I feel bad for you.
We got to let the listeners know what they're going to get.
Is this like a tax write-off, like taking me and Matt in?
Man, I make too much. I need to pay way too much in taxes. Paid the amount of taxes I made while I was active duty. So Jesus Christ.
Final pick here. This is linking back up with my bitching and complaining earlier about Whataburger. I'm going with an In-N-Out double, fries, Neapolitan shake. I'll make it 2 Neapolitan shakes to round out my top 5 here.
I've never done a Neapolitan shake.
It's really good.
I've never done that.
I mean, have you gotten a shake from In-N-Out?
I always get like just a straight up vanilla shake. So
Okay. Try it. You get a little bit of, and it all like just kind of blends together as you drink it. It's
yeah,
good.
that's cool.
All three flavors are good by themselves, but like mixed together, it's pretty legit.
Yeah. Recapping our final meals draft top 5. Tony, you got the tour of Italy, a big old barbecue feast, kangaroo barbecue with some pea action in there, pierogies, In-N-Out double fries, and 2 Neapolitan shakes, probably smalls because, that's how you would do it. I got a well-done steak and ketchup, yellow Starburst, abundant, 1 scoop of vanilla ice cream in a regular bowl, not a cone or a waffle bowl or nothing like that, fried bologna sandwich, make me feel at home, and a big old plate of turkey bacon. Let us know who won the draft. You can actually vote in Spotify. So if you're listening on Spotify, which you should be listening on Spotify, not on any other podcast platform, just do it on Spotify. You will end up being able to vote right in there. And then you can comment on what you think your best final meal, or give us a couple final meals that you would like as you go forward. So, rants or raves, Tony, you got a rant or a rave?
I'm tempted to rant about coming over to TacoCorp for that draft you just had. Matt, I'm sorry. I don't know what we've done. I'm gonna rant, obviously.
Nice.
My rant is about people who pee in swimming pools. It's disgusting. You're pissing your trunks or bathing suits. You're just being lazy. It's disgusting. I've always felt this way. I've never done it. It's just pure lazy. Like, get out and just walk to the bath. There's almost always a bathroom you can just walk to. You don't have to even dry off. You're just being lazy, floating around the pool, pissing in it, floating in your piss. Meanwhile, there's kids like diving underwater, like that's getting in their eyes and mouth. But I did some research here, Nate, obviously.
I'm glad you're going to be on this thing more often.
When urine is mixed with chlorine, so chlorine is the if you're not, pool savvy, that's the chemical we use to keep pools clean. But when urine is mixed with chlorine, a chemical reaction happens that produces cyanogen chloride and trichloramine. And then I have a little bit about the two, just to give you guys some context to hopefully, stop you from pissing in the pool in the future. But cyanogen chloride, it's highly toxic. It's a blood agent that was once studied for its use in chemical warfare, obviously in more pure, more potent doses, but it's actually a Schedule 3 chemical in the Chemical Weapons Convention, so kind of a big deal. And then trichloramine, this can irritate the mucous membrane. And then when found in pure substance, pure form, it's a dangerous explosive. So for people who swim frequently, this rampant pool pissing, it can increase their chances of developing asthma or hay fever. So swimmers oftentimes are at a higher risk, which doesn't make any sense. They're very healthy, very athletic, right? Mm-hmm. And then kids who swim a lot, they've been found to encounter lung irritation at a much higher rate. So TLDR, stop pissing in the pool, because not only are you encouraging, but you're also engaging in chemical warfare.
I'm
not happy about it.
What I got out of that is that pool pissers are actually chemists. And then I don't think any kid cares about what's going to happen to their lungs, because they're the ones that are pissing in the pools.
Yeah, stop it.
I.e. my daughter, who's sleeping in the room over there, because apparently she told you, I just pee.
Kids are innocent. If a parent tells them, just let it go, you don't have to get out of the pool. Probably because the parent doesn't want to walk into the damn bathroom.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's not their fault. It's your fault. I blame you.
Yeah. Can't put down your White Claws to go take your kid to the bathroom. I'm going to rant on people who stink. So people who stink and then they show up to work stink. Do you not know that you stink? Like, all I get from it is this. There's people that you end up working with, right? And you walk in and you walk into the office building, which is like the size of a big old living room, like a massive, massive living room, right? Like the size of a Subway, let's say, right? Mm-hmm. The sandwich artist place, Subway. Those, you walk in and it's big, and still, instead of smelling urban cheese, you just smell this weird thing that's like, what happened in here, right? And then you pass by the person that smells like that, and then they sit on your desk as they're talking to other people or something like that on the edge, and you're like, Jesus Christ, like, who's going to tell this guy that he stinks? It's not going to be me, because I don't want the confrontation. I just started working here. I'm not talking about my actual work life, so if you're from my work and you're listening, this is not about you. If you are the smelly guy, bathe, clean your house, do your laundry, right? Wash your sheets. Like, come on, it's basic things. And you can't keep showing up trying to be professional in the way that you speak professionally and about like all these social programs and shit like that while you stink. No one can take you seriously when you stink. It is terrible. Wash your clothes. I don't know how you're doing it. Like, it's like you just pick something out of your socks that you didn't wash and you wear them again because, I only wore the socks to work or whatever. I sat in the office all day. It's air conditioned. You stink. Don't invite me to your house because I guarantee it smells like that, because you can't come in here every single day smelling like that and your whole house doesn't smell like that, which means your wife or your husband is going their places and they stink. Your kids are going to school and they're the smelly kid. Even if they take a bath, they stink. Figure it out. Stop stinking. It's 2023. Soap's not expensive. It's a necessity. Figure it out. I know that Jason Kelsey doesn't wash his entire body all the time. He said it on their podcast or whatever. I saw a clip about it, but he only washed it like the other parts. He's like, oh, what do you need? Just put some water over it or whatever. Yeah. Like, Jesus Christ. And this is what got me thinking about, there's someone that stinks at work.
Is it Brandon? It's Brandon, isn't it?
He stinks too, but it's not him.
He does have rampant gas.
Yeah.
So
it's terrible, but that's all I got there. So anything else for the people, Tony, before we get out of here? This has been a long one.
You mentioned like wearing undergarments, socks, more than once. Underwear, you can wear them 4 times. You can wear them normal ways, front ways, you can wear them backwards. You can turn them inside out, wear them front ways, and then you can have them inside out and wear them backwards. So if you're traveling, you're going to be somewhere for 3 days, you just need 1 pair of underwear.
Nice.
Everybody knows this. I thought you knew this. Yeah. You work with Gary.
Scientific facts.
Yeah.
That's a good clip. All right. For some other data stuff, me and Tony talked about coaching staffs and stuff like that. We did some over-unders. Him and Matt did some over-unders for the NFC. We did the AFC, I believe. And then you got the NFC coaching breakdown out there. And then we will be doing the AFC coaching breakdown. A lot of data to really start out all of your research or whatever like that. And really think about where you're looking at all these other stuff, right? Wherever you're getting your data from, you're over here looking up rankings and stuff like that, or you're looking at your whatever the pre-done rankings are. If you're drafting online and stuff like that, you're reading a magazine from 4 months ago that's irrelevant or anything like that. It's a good source to be like, oh, wait, this doesn't make sense. Maybe I go dig into this a little bit more. What do I believe that's going to happen in fantasy football from what is all out there? Take it all, form your own opinions and stuff like that. But you get that. It's 58 West King podcast. It's linked down in the show notes below.
Yeah, those episodes will be dropping. I don't know when this episode's dropping, but today is now the 4th. You guys should see that on the 4th or 5th. So
nice.
Should be out by the time you're listening to this.
It'll be out because it's probably going to come out at the beginning of the week, Monday, Tuesday, or something like that. So, but that's that. And then, let us know some of the stuff that you like to hear. Anything you'd like us to cover, we'll figure it out. We just like researching and learning. I'm addicted to learning, and that's why I don't do a lot of things. It's terrible. Like, I just love learning new stuff. Maybe it's a habit of being active duty for a long time where you switch jobs every 4 years, but within that 4-year time frame, you're doing 3-4 different jobs and learning different stuff. So I've become addicted to learning stuff. So it gives me a chance to share the things that I learn or what I find, maybe provide a different perspective. It's always good to get different perspectives. So especially when it comes to your politics and who's getting indicted. So just kidding.
I love digging in statistics too. Yeah. So writing about that. So not that I don't watch film. All those statistics come from somebody watching the film. Yep. So those two things kind of go hand in hand.
Yep. I think we provide like a good mixture of different stuff too, right? So Matt is he watches games, right, as they're live and stuff like that, and follows stuff that's going on the internet. I kind of try to stay off the internet as much as possible.
Smart.
I can't handle it. It fucks me up bad. So you provide a lot of analytical data and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. You're interested in that kind of stuff. I like trying to figure out what teams are doing or what they're doing and why they're doing it, how defenses roll, right? And like the little X and O things and stuff like that. So I think we all provide like a little bit to mesh it all together and come to something. But you can rate, review the show. Please do that on Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening. Follow the show on YouTube. We'll be putting out more video content and stuff like that too. And let us know what you want to hear about. But banger of the week is going to be Desperate Youth by Santa Gold. For Tony, I'm Nate. TacoCorp 93. It's a wrap. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.